Hey everybody, welcome back to Version of Events. I'm Ellie.
I'm Jessica.
And this is Version of Events News Roundup, where we dip into cases that are either in the press or on our minds. And we're sorry that we missed last week.
Yeah, sorry guys.
It was my fault again. I lost my voice. So we couldn't record, and that made me sad. But here we are.
Feeling better now?
Yeah, I do feel better now, and we're back recording. So that's good.
Excellent.
So this week we've got several cases lined up for you. Let's kick it off, Jess, with Donald Burgess.
Yeah, Donald Burgess. This is a case in England, in St Leonards-on-Sea, which is a little town on the south coast. My dad grew up there, actually. So after a 7-day trial at Southwark Crown Court, police officers Stephen Smith and Rachel Camotto were found not guilty of 2 counts and 1 count, respectively, of assault occasioning grievous bodily harm after they entered Donald Burgess's room at his care home. They tasered him, struck him with a baton, and sprayed him with Parva pepper spray. Donald was 92 years old. He was in a wheelchair, and he was an amputee, a single-leg amputee. He was taken into hospital following this incident, where he contracted COVID-19, and he died 3 weeks later, aged 93. The officer's interaction with him before he was handcuffed lasted just 83 seconds, and the video is publicly available, and it is shocking to see.
Yeah, I mean, when you showed it to me, I was just in disbelief, sheer disbelief.
It's not nice.
He doesn't look like a threat in any sense of the word to me.
I agree. Officers Smith and Camotto became involved on June the 21st, 2022, after care home staff called emergency services because Mr. Burgess brandished a knife that he'd been given to eat his dinner with, and he threatened to stab staff. And look, while I'm sure this was very distressing for the staff, it's not pleasant. Let's be clear about the type of knife that we're discussing. This isn't a machete, it's not a steak knife, it's not a chef's knife. It's essentially a butter knife. That's why he had it. It's been specifically adapted for disabled people, so it's got a thick handle with a grip on it, so he was able to hold it. And it's also a rounded tip rather than a pointed tip knife. And there's currently a kind of a campaign here for these sorts of knives with the round tips to become the norm, specifically because they can't really be used to hurt someone. And for obvious reasons, you wouldn't expect a care home resident to be given a sharp knife. So it's hard for me to understand how this got to the point quite quickly of involving the police.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to me that there was obviously something going on with Donald, that he was stressed himself in some way. I don't know if he had dementia or something like that. But, you know, care home people are trained to deal with that kind of behaviour.
Yeah.
And so escalating it to police, that's a really big step to take quite early on.
Yeah. It does seem from the reporting that Donald did have dementia, but there was also some other things going on. But the officers didn't know that. They didn't take any efforts to establish that. And this is something that came out during their trial. They entered his bedroom immediately on arrival at the home without speaking to staff to establish his condition. The charity Inquest, who are working with Donald's family, said that, quote, "They did not take any steps to explain their presence to Mr. Burgess, nor did they employ de-escalation tactics, but instead immediately threatened and then executed significant force against the elderly man. I think that's a reasonably fair
Yeah.
summation. They, on the video that's been released, they don't appear to declare that they're police officers. They may have done that beforehand, or that may not have been released. But it's also not clear, even if they had declared that, would Mr. Burgess have understood in the condition that he was in?
Yes, and that's the question, isn't it? Would he have
Yeah.
understood? And that's what makes their actions even more abhorrent, regardless of the findings in the trial. It is my opinion that they assaulted this man.
Well, I tend to agree. So after being taken into hospital, Mr. Burgess was found to be suffering with a UTI, and that's what led to his heightened confusion and aggression.
Yes.
And I was discussing this with my mum, because her mum, well, she passed recently, but she was in her home, and my mum said the first thing that they should be looking for if someone's in that kind of state would be a UTI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. While giving evidence in his trial, Officer Stephen Smith said that he was not aware of Mr. Burgess's disability. And I wasn't on that jury. This is really hard for me to believe. Donald was sitting right there in a wheelchair, and he had one leg. You can see he's wearing a pair of trousers. One leg is cut. One leg goes down to the knee. It's very difficult to believe that. And as well as the simple fact of being in a care home, you don't go in and expect to find someone in peak physical health or mental health.
No, you don't. But also, that just says it all, that he didn't know he was disabled because he didn't ask, because he didn't bother to find out, because he didn't do any investigating before he jumped into hitting the man and then tasering him. I think that was actually Rachel Komoto that tased him.
So yes, Stephen Smith sprayed Mr. Burgess in the face with pepper spray and then struck him with a baton.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not just that. It shows that if he didn't know that he was disabled, that's because he didn't find out and he didn't pay attention. I find it hard to believe that he didn't realise very quickly on entering his bedroom. But either way, this is not good.
No.
So yeah, as you said, Ellie, you think that they assaulted this man, and I agree, really. But despite what appears to be very strong evidence, the jury in the case deliberated for only around 2 hours before reaching not guilty verdicts on all charges. And so this is where we have to give our kind of usual disclaimer. In some cases where there's been a not guilty verdict, but they're awaiting sentencing for lesser crimes, you have to be quite careful about what you say. In this case, because they're not awaiting sentencing, they're only now awaiting a gross misconduct tribunal, we can be a bit freer with what we say. But the fact is that trials aren't televised or streamed here. We weren't at the trial. So perhaps the jury heard something significant that we didn't hear, which led to their decision.
Yeah.
It's possible that the officers came across very well when giving evidence. And something that kind of occurred to me while I was reading the articles on this case was that failing to establish his condition before entering the room and before engaging with Mr. Burgess, it definitely caused problems. I mean, the staff could have made it clear that he was disabled, confused, and this possibly is the most important thing to have made them aware of for me. The knife he was holding was not capable of hurting anyone. It wasn't capable, really, of hurting himself. And so I think all of those things are very bad practice. I'm not sure legally that it gets you closer to proving the crime of assault.
Yeah.
It does push you further away from acting in your capacity as a police officer in the best way, but it's not. I think that applies more to the tribunal. So the clear failures in the build-up to the officer's intervention, not establishing the condition or what the knife was like, I think they definitely support the charge of gross misconduct, and both officers are facing these and could lose their jobs. For whatever reason, the jury felt the evidence wasn't there to convict them beyond a reasonable doubt, but the standard of proof needed for upholding these allegations at tribunal is much lower.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. The jury could have heard something that we haven't heard. And so, that's why we have to state very clearly that it's our opinion.
Yeah.
On based of what we've read. And we have to tell you that we haven't necessarily had all the information.
Yeah. We did speak to two nurses about this, both of whom have worked with vulnerable people like Donald Burgess, and both of them were shocked at what happened. One said, "If I even snatched that from his hands, I could be struck off, yet police officers carry on like this. It is never acceptable to allow a vulnerable person to come to harm. I could find ways of removing the knife from him, but honestly, it's a butter knife. There is zero justification to be physical with a patient there." End quote. And the other nurse we spoke to said, "I dealt with exactly this situation on most days. Any one of my colleagues would have found ways to calmly and peacefully remove the knife without resorting to any kind of force. We'd probably start by offering him a cup of tea on that side of his body so that he'd have to put the knife down to pick up the tea. Another method I'd use is tell him that the kitchen staff are about to wash up and have asked me to collect up all the cutlery and crockery. Most people with dementia will just hand it over at that point. The main thing is to stay low-key and don't act scared." End quote. There's one point I want to reiterate just at the end there. Stay low-key. Those officers did not stay low-key. They were immediately threatening Mr. Burgess in ways that he doesn't seem to have understood because he didn't follow their instructions. And I think there are so many failures here. I hope that there is an inquest now that the trial's over to establish all the things that went wrong here. But this is so tragic, and just obviously thoughts are with the Burgess family.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's the first case that we're looking at this week. The next case we're looking at, Ellie, is Faith Hedgepeth.
We are indeed. Faith Danielle Hedgepeth was a junior at the University of North Carolina, and she was studying out of their Chapel Hill campus. Faith was Native American, and she had big dreams of becoming a pediatrician and then returning home to practice medicine to help support her tribe, the Haliwa-Saponi tribe. Faith's heritage was incredibly important to her, as was her family. While she was a sensible and hard-working young woman, Faith also knew how to let her hair down and party when she wanted to, but she also knew when she needed to call things a night. But her dreams would never come to pass, as Faith was devastatingly murdered on the 7th of September 2012 at the age of 19. She was just 3 weeks shy of her 20th birthday.
That's horrible.
I know. Worse than that, though, she was beaten to death with a blunt force weapon, which is thought to be a glass bottle of Bacardi peach rum, and there was evidence of semen and male DNA at the scene and a palm print on the bottle of rum. So there would have been blood everywhere, like beating her head with The night of the murder, Faith and her friend and roommate Karina Rosario went out together at around midnight of the 6th to the 7th of September, clubbing, and then they returned home about 3 a.m. together because Karina was feeling sick. However, Karina seemed to feel better and she went back out at about 4:25 a.m., leaving Faith to go to bed alone that night. Now, I just want to address the fact that over the years there's been a lot of scrutiny on Karina Rosario's story, but you'll find none of that here. Karina did nothing wrong. She was just living her best college life. But the fact that Faith was alone, it is important because law enforcement thought that the apartment was watched, and the killer knew when 2 girls came home and then 1 went back out that this was his chance, and he took it. So Karina returns home with a friend later in that morning, and they were shocked and traumatized by what they saw. Faith was half naked, wrapped in the covers, half on, half off the bed, and there was blood everywhere. They dialed 911 immediately, and we have the call for you to listen to here.
Dial 911, where is your emergency?
I just walked into my apartment and my friend is just like, she's unconscious.
Okay, what's your address, ma'am?
I live at Hollynn at the View.
Give me the address.
I just moved here. I'm about to get it. Oh my God. It's 5639 Old Chapel Hill Road in Durham.
Okay, repeat it to me so I make sure I've got it correct.
Okay. 5639 Old Chapel Hill Road. It's apartment 1602.
1602?
Yes.
Okay. What's the phone number you're calling from?
201-321-8075.
Okay, you say your friend is unconscious?
She's unconscious. I just walked in the apartment and there looks like there's blood everywhere.
Listen to me. Somebody's already sending the ambulance. Okay? I need to get some information from you, and I'm gonna tell you how to help her, okay? Okay. How old is she?
She's 19.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to touch her, but...
Listen to me. Is she breathing?
I don't know.
You need to check and see. Is she breathing?
I don't think so.
Okay, listen to me.
There's blood everywhere.
There's what?
There's blood everywhere.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, is she on her back or is she laying on her stomach?
She's on her back, but I think she fell off the bed because she's off the bed. There's blood all over the pillows, in the comforter. I just don't know what happened.
Okay. All right, listen to me, all right?
Is someone coming?
Yes, I've got somebody coming. I need for you to help her. I need for you to go up to her. We need to see if she's breathing or not. Okay?
I don't think so.
Okay. Listen to me. Go up. The paramedics are on their way. I want you to stay on the line. I'm going to tell you what to do next, all right? Are you right by her now?
Yes.
Okay. Listen carefully.
Moving.
She's not moving. Okay.
No.
Will you touch her arm? Tell me, how does she feel?
She's not moving.
Okay, ma'am, we need to find out if we can help her or not. You've got to, do as I'm asking so we can help her. All right? Okay. If you can, lay her flat on her back. Remove any pillow.
Laying her flat on her back.
Flat on her back. Remove any pillows.
Okay.
Okay. Kneel next to her. Look in her mouth for food or vomit.
Blood everywhere.
Okay. Kneel next to her. Look in her mouth for food or vomit. Tell me something. Listen to me. What is your name?
Karina. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
It's okay, honey. It's okay, honey. Listen to me. Okay. All right. Listen to me. When you touched her, how does she feel? Does she feel warm?
No, she feels cold.
She feels cold? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Don't touch anything else, okay? Don't touch anything else.
Hurry.
Okay, they're on their way. I've got police on the way to you, and I've got medics on the way. Okay?
I can't believe this.
Okay. What room is she in?
She's in my bedroom.
Okay, I want you to go back into the living room, okay?
I don't know what's going on. Like,
okay, listen to
in
me.
my room that, like, was not here before.
Okay,
it looks
listen
like
to
someone
me.
That came in here.
Okay.
It really does.
All right, what did you say your name was again?
Because
okay, I don't. Okay, listen to me. Don't touch anything else in the room.
I'm not
I want you to leave that room. Go into the living room. You need to make sure the door is unlocked so somebody can get in, so that the medics and the police can get in when they get there. Okay?
Yes, it's unlocked.
Okay, now tell me again.
They're going to get here, though.
Okay, they're on their way, honey. They're coming as fast as they can. You just stay on the phone with me, all right?
I am.
Okay, tell me again what your name is.
It looks like someone had been in there because she's not like the cell. I don't know what.
Okay. I've let them know. We've got everybody on the way to help you. Now, tell me again what your name is.
What?
What is your name?
Karina Rosario.
Karina?
Yes.
Okay, Karina. You sit down on the couch and don't touch anything, okay? You just sit down.
I'm not touching anything.
Okay. I just want you to sit down because the police and the medics are going to be there. They're coming just as fast as they can, all right?
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me. Okay? You just stay on the phone with me.
Are you sure they're coming?
Yes, ma'am. They are on their way.
I can't believe this. No, someone had to have been in there.
Okay. We've got first responders on the way. There's a fire truck coming. There's a medic coming, and the sheriff's department's on the way to you.
Okay.
You just stay on the phone with me until somebody gets there with you. All right?
Okay.
Okay, Karina. How old are you, Karina?
I'm 20.
You're 20? Okay, hon. You're doing all right. You just stay on the phone with me.
I see the police.
You see the police?
Yes.
Okay. You let me know when they get in there with you, and then you can talk to them, all right?
Okay.
I just don't want you to be alone right now.
Okay.
Okay? You just stay on the phone with me.
Okay.
Are they in there with you? They coming in?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, honey. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
So, Jess, what do you make of that call?
Wow. I mean, yeah, I have tears in my eyes listening to Karina. That's so sad, and she's so obviously upset. And I've heard a little bit of the coverage of this case previously, and people have been quite critical of Karina, not just for going back out, which again I agree with you, nothing wrong, but also for not being able to remember the address. And sure, if Karina's a suspect, that might be something you think about. But actually, is that suspicious, or is it just a trauma reaction?
It's
And I
just a
think,
trauma reaction,
yeah,
isn't it?
and I think it's very clear that she's just, oh my gosh, my friend's dead.
Yeah.
My roommate's dead. And bluntly, I think there are some people out there who owe Karina Rosario an apology.
I completely agree with you. I mean, they hadn't long moved in. This was early September, so it's the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, and she says, doesn't she? Just moved in, yeah.
So it takes me a little while to sort of remember an address if I move.
Yeah.
So being presented with a demand for the address when you've only just moved in there and your friends, you're pretty sure dead on your bed with blood everywhere,
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that she had to check what it was.
Yeah. It's better that she did that rather than giving the wrong address.
Exactly.
So, yeah, fully in defense of Karina here.
Yeah, definitely. Now, initially, police focused on Eric Takoy Jones, who had been in a romantic relationship with Karina Rosario. But there was domestic violence between them, and Faith, being the loyal, good friend she is, encouraged and supported Karina to report the abuse and get a restraining order. Because of this, Takoy Jones threatened Faith, and that's why they looked into him, but his DNA didn't match that found at the scene, and neither did his palm print. So investigators, they went back to square one. And square one is where it stayed for 9 long years.
It's interesting. I mean, it's right that he was a suspect, but the semen at the scene indicates a different motivation than killing your girlfriend's roommate.
Yeah.
This very much seems like a sexually motivated crime.
Yes, it does.
And also just props to Faith for sticking up for her friend and getting her out of this horrible relationship.
Absolutely.
And
I think that... Sorry, Jess. I just think that shows what a wonderful person Faith was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 9 years go by, and then in September 2021, officers conducted a seemingly routine traffic stop on Miguel Enrique Salguero-Olivares for driving under the influence. During his arrest, his prints and DNA were taken and popped into the system, where they both pinged up his connection to the 9-year-old cold case of Faith Hedgepeth. From there, he was charged with first-degree murder, and North Carolina, it is a death penalty state, although all executions are on hold at this time. So yeah,
just a completely random traffic stop. They pull him for, I don't know, running a stop sign, and
yeah, they pulled him for drinking, driving, basically.
Yeah. Oh, driver, you said that. Sorry.
That's all right.
I was trying to work out what. Yeah. So they pull him for that, and wow, that is not what you expect to find.
No, it's not. I mean, I can't imagine the officers' faces when that came up.
Yeah.
So the arrest was really big news, and Faith's family spoke out about how glad they are that someone has been found and charged in connection with the brutal murder of their beloved Faith. We know that Salguero-Olivares pleaded not guilty to the first-degree murder charge that he's facing, meaning there will be a trial. He has exercised his right to a trial. Now, I don't know about you, Jess, but I think this is an interesting choice. They've got him with the DNA and the palm print on the bottle at the scene. If I were his lawyer, I'd be trying to get a plea deal and not going head first into trial. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you described it as an interesting, I would say, novel. Interesting and novel are sometimes words people use to describe legal decisions which are pretty inexplicable.
Yes.
This is unless there is a connection between Salguero-Olivares and Faith, which I'm pretty confident there isn't. There's no explanation for these findings, and even if he did have a connection to her, he's still at the scene. He's still at the scene, So of course, he's got the right to go to trial. But this seems like a very strong case.
It does, and it's gone quiet again, but that's because ADA's explained in some reports from late last year and early this year that there is just so much evidence in discovery, and a lot of it is forensic evidence, which obviously needs to be tested and reported on by each side's expert witnesses.
So does that mean there's potentially more it sounds like there's potentially more forensic evidence than just, I say just,
yes.
Even more forensic evidence than that. Wow.
Yeah, so I haven't included everything because I want to do a deep dive on the case.
Yeah.
But there was a note left with handwriting, so his DNA would presumably be on the note.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, and there is also rumoured to be a voicemail that Faith recorded accidentally that is in evidence as well, but that is rumoured, so don't.
I've heard about the voicemail. I know they've done some enhancement on it, and this is other content creators have done enhancements on it, and some of them even use the contents of the voicemail to implicate Karina again, which is outrageous. And again, they've arrested the guy whose semen and palm print are at the scene. Everyone who has ever accused Karina Rosario owes her an apology.
Yes, I completely agree with you. It's shocking, really, that this poor girl who found her friend dead has just been targeted for no reason.
Yeah, the police have the right to. The police are right to investigate suspects. It's notable that the suspect wasn't Karina; it was her ex-partner.
Mm-hmm.
But people have to remember the real-world consequences of accusing someone who had the horrible luck, the traumatic experience of walking in to find their friend beaten to death.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I can't imagine what she must still deal with now in terms of like PTSD and, finding your friend like that, that's an image that never leaves you. It never goes away. It's not something you just get over and go, oh, well, and skip off into a happy ending the next day. It's there with you forever. And I just really feel for her. And for Faith's family, of course, that goes without saying. But yeah, I think anyone who's ever accused Karina owes her a massive apology, for sure.
Yeah. So, we're waiting on trial to be scheduled.
Yes. So I'm kind of hoping it might be this year, but we are in June, so I don't know how likely that is. But I'm just going to be keeping a close eye on it because it's a case that has really, really touched me. And it's a story that needs to be told because Faith is an Indigenous lady, was an Indigenous lady, and stories of Indigenous ladies that are murdered often just get brushed to the side, and so it needs to be told.
The tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls is not just that there are so many, but that the coverage is deeply inadequate. And this is a case that you've talked to me about, and we both care very much about doing what little we can to bring awareness of such cases. And it does sound like, at least in this case, they're moving towards getting justice for Faith and her family, and that's something. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. And hopefully her family, when they get justice in a court of law, get some healing from that and
Yes.
are able to move on a little bit. I don't know if move on is the right word for a situation like that. I'm sure it's something you never ever get over. But hopefully they can move forward and heal and have some happier times in life with their family.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that is Faith Hedgepeth's case, and now we're moving on to Missing and Marginalised. Both of our cases in Missing and Marginalised this week come from Kingsport, Tennessee. And Jess is going to tell us all about Layla Santanello.
Layla Santanello was 20 when she went missing in June 2023. She's 22 now. She was last seen on June 27th, 2023 at about 6:15 a.m. Layla's only 4'10" and she weighs between 115 and 135 pounds. When she was last seen, Layla had bleached blonde hair with dark roots coming through. Layla struggles with substance abuse issues. When she was last seen at that 6:15 a.m. time was at the AmeriCorp Motel, which is 1900 American Way, Kingsport, Tennessee. If anyone has any information regarding the disappearance of Layla, please call 423-343-9780. That's 423-343-9780 or 1-800-TBI-FIND. Next case we're looking at is Hollynn Snapp.
Hollynn Snapp was last seen in the Bay Ridge Drive area of Kingsport on October 15th, 2023. Age 19. She's 20 now. She's 4'8" and weighs about 110 pounds. She has learning difficulties and she also struggles with substance abuse. She went missing less than 10 miles from where Layla was last seen, but police do not believe their disappearances are linked. On October 9th, witnesses say Hollynn was assaulted and beaten unconscious by a 52-year-old man named Steven Linkous. If you have any information about Hollynn's disappearance, including about Linkous, please call 423-279-7500. That's 423-279-7500 or 1-800-TBI-FIND. That's 1-800-TBI-FIND. And now our next case is an update in Loony Lori. Jess, take it away.
That's right, it's Loony Lori Vallow Daybell again. And just to sort of explain this, we know we've spent quite a bit of time on Lori lately, particularly on her motion for a new trial following her conviction for conspiracy to murder her husband, Charles Vallow. And part of the reason we've spent some time on this is that the media reports made a really big deal when this motion was filed, but after it was filed, there was suddenly far fewer updates. There wasn't an update really on the state's response, and there's only been a little bit of coverage of the actual denial of the motion. And to be honest, this is a repeated problem in crime reporting. People are led to believe that a court filing is a very big deal, or that something bad is about to happen, like Lori Daybell getting a new trial. Whereas actually, these things are often very unlikely. And we said from the beginning that this was unlikely to be granted, and it has in turn been dismissed. All 5 grounds of Lori's motion for a new trial have been dismissed. So we'll go through them quickly. And then there was a hearing in Lori's case, or there was supposed to be. You may have heard about it. We'll get on to that in a minute. So the first ground Lori raised was an allegation of juror misconduct. After, on leaving the trial, a juror was immediately ambushed by the media, and he said that he had been thinking about Lori spending the rest of her life in jail yesterday. And yesterday was the day before the verdict had been reached. That would mean, obviously, that he had learned about Lori's prior convictions. Those convictions, again, for the murder of her 2 kids, Tylee and JJ, and her new husband's wife, Tammy Daybell. The prosecution, however, provided a number of other statements from the juror which confirmed that he hadn't known about Lori's prior convictions until after the verdict was reached. And Judge Justin Boreski, we love Justin, agreed and said the court does not find a clear indication of juror misconduct, let alone any evidence of prejudice to the defendant. Just to kind of put that in context, that's been dismissed very easily by the judge. That was the ground that we said had the most validity. So all the rest of them, I'm sure you can imagine how frivolous they really were. So the next ground, Lori argued that the statements of Tylee Ryan, that's her daughter and victim, and Alex Cox, her brother, and the actual physical murderer who got his hands dirty, the murderer of Tylee, JJ, Charles Vallow, and Tammy Daybell, should have been admissible statements. But she completely failed to explain why they weren't hearsay, and the judge agreed that the defendant had failed to raise a single specific statement that should have been permissibly allowed. So again, this is really... there was very little actual case law quoted during Lori's motions, to be honest. The next ground Lori argued that she needed a mistrial for was a discovery violation, specifically that the contents of Charles Vallow's phone were exculpatory, and not turning them over was therefore a discovery violation. And the judge said, the defendant has offered no evidence that any additional information was obtained from the phone, let alone it being exculpatory. Now, this is something that we'd mentioned. Lori declares there is exculpatory evidence on the phone. She didn't explain why. But I don't think we really kind of said. She hasn't actually confirmed that whether there was any evidence recovered. She just declares it to be fact.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very much like, I say it so therefore it is so.
It's quite hard to comprehend how strange these filings are, because, I mean, there are good lawyers and there are bad lawyers, but Lori is a playtime lawyer. And you don't see filings like this from people who actually study the law.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You see actual filings from them.
Yeah.
You know, ones with actual case law and relevant information in.
And even if they don't have any merit, they still usually mention the law.
Yeah.
Okay, the next ground, prosecutorial misconduct. And the court finds nothing in the defendant's allegations comes close to establishing prosecutorial misconduct. The state is allowed to argue reasonable inferences from the evidence presented. And yeah, Lori, we could have told you that, and we did actually. We did say that. This is really...
If only she'd listened.
Right, so the most interesting part of the court's decision is on the ground in which Lori alleged judicial bias. Now, unsurprisingly, the judge doesn't accept that he's biased. Lori argued that her witnesses were unfairly excluded, and she said there are no rules of evidence requiring her to establish a witness has knowledge before their testimony is allowed. That's not true. If you can't make it clear why the witness is relevant, you have to explain that. You can do a proffer, an offer of proof, but you have to do that in the presence of the state. Lori couldn't cope with this, but the judge points out that Arizona Rules of Evidence 601 and 602 do require you to demonstrate that the witness has knowledge. And just so you know, we did our homework. I went and checked them, and yes, Arizona Rule 602 says a witness may testify to a matter only if evidence is introduced sufficient to support a finding that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. Which, I mean, Lawyer Lori, Loony Lori, the Playtime lawyer, should know that, but she doesn't, and this is why you don't represent yourself in court, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like just watching a toddler being told no over and over again. And
yeah,
we all know what happens when a toddler's told no over and over again.
Yeah. As for the other alleged bias Lori highlighted, which is when the judge commented, while overruling an objection from the state. So he's ruling in Lori's favour on this question at trial. And she still wasn't happy. Lori asked a question about the Mormon concept of translation, which is becoming immortal, essentially. And the judge said, I'll allow it to the extent that you're comparing yourself to these biblical figures. And to be clear, that is what she was doing. She was comparing herself to biblical figures like Enoch and figures in the Book of Mormon like Nephi. So,
yeah,
the judge was right. But he states here in his filing, the state was objecting to the relevance of the question, and the court thought the question had some minimal relevance based on the context of the defendant's line of questioning. The court notes the defendant's argument as to why the question was relevant was not in line with why the court surmised it was relevant. Which is a bit of an oof, again, for Lori, because she's playing at this, but her argument for why it was relevant is not what the court thought. But, you know, he still allowed it, and she's still not happy about this comment. And our thoughts on it were, as we said, the judge's comment was true, and it was quite funny. He's not there to be funny, but it was quite funny.
He's very dry. I like his sense of humour.
Yes. Yeah. But his response here is very serious and very fair. He says, while the court's comment was not necessary, it does not evidence bias, nor does it mean the court was demonstrating any partiality. Nonetheless, the court acknowledges the court's comment was unnecessary, and the court should have simply overruled the state's objection without comment. And I think this shows again, he is being very fair to Lori Daybell, far fairer than some judges might be. And he accepts that he didn't need to say this, and he says that he shouldn't have done. So, this makes her behaviour towards him even more inexplicable.
It does. It really does.
So, yeah, the motion's denied. What were you saying, sorry?
It just, when we get to what's happened most recently, it just seems like somebody who's playing out their tactics to delay because they're not getting what they want.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So this week, jury selection was supposed to start on Monday. And what happened was, Lori tried to call in sick to her own trial. She rocked up at court in a wheelchair, claiming to be sick, and doing the most exaggerated sick voice I've ever heard since gym class at school.
No, in the courtroom. Sorry. Keep moving. Lori Daybell for the defense.
All right, are we ready to proceed with jury selection?
No,
Why not?
I'm sick, Your Honor. I've been sick all weekend. I let my team know yesterday I was sick.
Can you please pull the microphone a little closer? I can't hear you very well.
I'm sick. I've been sick.
Have you put in tank orders to get treatment?
Yes.
Are you being housed in the...
Uh, I mean, we're going to play a couple of clips from this so you can hear it, but it was very hand up, I think it's fair to say. But look, in Lori's defence, and that's not a phrase I'm going to say very often, in Lori's defence, reporter Nate Eaton, who was in the courtroom, says that Lori didn't look well. She looked pale, she looked ill. But like you say, Ellie, it seems very conveniently timed to delay jury selection and thus the trial, which is in connection with the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. And again, despite Lori's apparent illness, it was still very heated in court. He said to Lori, "I'm still going to be the trial judge, even if it's delayed," which I think suggests that he's got her number on this. He knows if he suspects, at least, maybe he suspects what she's trying to do.
I'm your trial judge. My instructions are to complete your second trial. So even if for some reason your sickness worsened and we weren't able to complete this trial and had to declare mistrials of this trial, even if this case got delayed into June or July or August to be reset, I'd still be your trial judge.
But the best moment, so the judge has rescheduled jury selection for Wednesday this week. So that's today while we're recording. The episode will be out tomorrow. So by now you'll know what happened today, which is odd. But so we don't know as we're talking now. We will see. But judge rescheduled it for today. And the best moment of the hearing was definitely this interaction.
I don't know about you rescheduling this for Wednesday. It puts a lot of pressure on me to be better and ready for Wednesday. And if I'm not, I don't like to disappoint people. I don't like putting people out of their way, all the jurors and all these things, and all the pressure is on me. That's not going to help me get any better anytime soon.
What is your suggestion?
I don't know, but I'm saying so tomorrow, if I'm not better and I let my team know, are you going to drag me in here like you did today? What's the team that came to get me? Do you know they felt so sorry for me to have to get dragged out of bed to bring me here?
Yeah, the answer is yes. I probably will order that you be here Wednesday. We'll take tomorrow off. Because I need to confirm how you're feeling. You because you represent yourself, no one else can waive your own appearance.
You're welcome to come over to the jail and come to my cell and see how I'm doing in there.
All right, I'll take a pass on that.
So yeah, Lori wants the judge to pop down and see her in the jail. And
As you do.
but funnily enough, he wasn't so keen on that idea. So look, it's obvious that Charlie's going to go ahead at some point soon, regardless of the delaying tactics, I think. And I would be astonished if it doesn't end in another conviction, because the evidence against Lori looks very strong. And even without being aware of her previous crimes, including two crimes that are very similar to the murder of attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux, the evidence is very strong. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. It'll be an interesting trial, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, you know what? I'll just say, hopefully, that'll be the last time we update you on Lori Daybell for at least a few weeks until we get a verdict in this trial. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
The next case that we're going to discuss today, Ellie, is an update on Russell Brand.
It is indeed. So we do have an update on Russell Brand, who we first posted about on our social media. So just to remind you of the case, Brand is a broadcaster, comedian and actor, and he's accused of 5 counts of rape, sexual assault and oral rape of several women over the time period of 1999 to 2006. He instantly denied the charges laid to him at the time that the charges were announced, but he has now officially appeared at Southwark Crown Court in London and pleaded not guilty to all charges against him. So because of that, now there will be a trial starting in early June of next year, during which the women accusing him of these crimes will likely be called by the defence and be torn apart. That said, I stand firmly with the women involved in this case, and I hope they know how much support that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously the standard for the jury to judge by is beyond a reasonable doubt, and they will presume that he's innocent. But everyone else doesn't have to take that kind of attitude. We can look at the evidence, look at the number of false allegations compared to the far higher number of non-prosecuted cases, and say there's clearly evidence to take this to trial, and the women in this case deserve support. And frankly, I think it's always very sad when victims are torn to pieces on the stand and just shredded and their reputations attacked in court. And it's very brave to publicly accuse anyone, especially a famous comedian and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very brave of them, and it just reminds me of Giselle Pellico in her own trial saying, "Oh, I understand why more people don't report rape now."
Exactly.
Yeah. But funnily enough, Brand refused to speak to the press as he entered the courtroom with his sunglasses on, and only spoke to confirm his name and to reply not guilty after each charge was read out, and to thank an usher who helped him exit the grass dock in the court. He left through a different door and was instantly escorted by security to a waiting car that then drove away. So no more words from him, and I imagine that his legal team are telling him to shut up right now.
Yeah, there's an ongoing case in the true crime world at the moment. She who must not be named, Karen Reid, who didn't quite shut up, and she probably should have done. And it's hard. You can't blame Russell Brand for being quiet. If you are accused of a crime, stop talking is good advice.
Yeah. And then finally, there's just a quick update on Madeleine McCann.
There are new searches being made to try and find missing Maddie McCann in near Pradeluz in the Algarve in Portugal. So this is a joint venture between the Portuguese and German authorities, and they've executed warrants on 21 plots of land, kind of between the resort at which the McCanns are staying and where the suspect, Christian Bruckner, was staying at the time of her going missing, which I read is within a mile of the apartment complex. So it's very close.
Yeah.
The search is ongoing at the moment. It's said to be the intention is for it to go on to at least Friday the 6th of June. And there's been some digging going on in addition to the search of kind of disused buildings near the coast. There's also sites that span up to 3.5 miles away from where Maddie was last seen. So it's not just the less than a mile, there's quite a bit of ground being covered.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, I think everyone knew already that the police, the kind of search this was going to be, but the digging really cements it that this is not a search for Madeleine alive.
No, it's not.
Which is devastating for the McCanns, I'm sure. But hopefully there will be some kind of news that comes from this. Bruckner's not been charged. He has been named officially by the Portuguese police an arguido or suspect. I guess then they need to find some more evidence to charge him, or if they don't find anything, to look elsewhere rather than at him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just so sad.
Because she went missing in 2007, in May 2007, so it's been nearly 20 years, a really long time.
Yeah, it's been a very long time, and now it will just be remains, I imagine, which is awful, absolutely awful for any child to go like that. Is just really gets me.
It's very sad, and yeah, hopefully they'll find something that progresses the investigation. Right, I think that's all the cases we've got this week.
It is indeed. Thank you all for joining us. Please don't forget to give us a 5-star review wherever you are listening to your podcasts, and press the little bell to make sure that you get alerts every time we drop a new episode. You can check us out on our socials. We're at Version of Events anywhere you can think of, including Substack.
Yep.
And you can email us at versionofevents@gmail.com, and our website is versionofevents.co.uk. So if you want to request any cases, feel free to get in touch.
Yeah, please do. We love hearing from you guys with the cases that you want to hear about. And we love just chatting with you. Like we mentioned the 2 nurses we spoke to earlier, because they are in their jobs, we're not using their names, but thank you to them for letting us use those quotes. And if you want to recommend us a story, please do. And yeah, we love hearing from you guys.
All right, guys, take care, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye, guys.